World War II ended in 1945. Millions of soldiers laid down their weapons. Millions of families finally welcomed their loved ones home. The dead were mourned. The survivors moved on. Everyone knew the war was over. Everyone, except one man. For the next 29 years, he would hide in a jungle, armed, alone, waiting. Not for rescue, not for food, not for freedom. He was waiting for a single order, an order that would never come. And here's what makes this story so unbelievable. He wasn't trapped. He wasn't injured. He wasn't stranded. He could have walked out at any time. He chose not to. This is the true story of Hiroo Onoda, and how one idea kept a war alive for nearly 3 decades. December 1944. The Second World War is reaching its final chapter. Japan is losing. American forces are advancing across the Pacific, and a young intelligence officer named Hiroo Onoda arrives on a small Philippine island called Lubang. Before leaving, his commanding officer gives him one final instruction. You are forbidden to surrender. You are forbidden to take your own life. No matter what happens, we will return for you. To most soldiers, it would have sounded like a routine military order. To Onoda, it became a mission for life. Months later, the unthinkable happens. Japan surrenders. The war is over. Across the world, celebrations erupt. Church bells ring. Families cry tears of relief. Soldiers board ships home. After years of bloodshed, peace has finally arrived. But deep inside the jungle, something strange is happening. Onoda refuses to believe it. One morning, paper begins falling from the sky. Not bombs, not supplies. Messages. Leaflets. The war is over. Japan has surrendered. Come home. For most people, those words would have changed everything. For Onoda, they changed nothing. He studies the leaflet, reads every word, and reaches a shocking conclusion. It's a trick. If the enemy wants us to surrender, then the war must still be going on. He folds the paper, puts it away, and disappears back into the jungle. That single decision would shape the next 29 years of his life. At first, he isn't alone. 3 other Japanese soldiers are hiding with him. Together, they build shelters from branches, collect rainwater, steal food from nearby farms, and wait. Every day, they expect Japanese forces to return. Every day, they prepare for battle. But what happens when weeks become months, and months become years? The answer is simple. You adapt. The jungle becomes their world. They hunt. They hide. They survive typhoons. They repair their uniforms again and again. But there is something important many people leave out. To Onoda, the war never ended. It wasn't history. It wasn't a memory. It was still happening. Every single day. And because he believed that, he kept fighting. His group raided farms, destroyed crops, exchanged gunfire with police and local residents. Years passed, then decades. People continued getting hurt. Some lost their lives. All because one group of soldiers refused to accept a war was over. To much of the world, Onoda had become a legend, a rumor hidden somewhere in the jungle. To the people living on Lubang Island, he was terrifyingly real. Then the group began to disappear, one by one. In 1949, one soldier finally surrendered. The others believed he had betrayed them. Years later, another was killed, then another. And eventually, only one man remained. Onoda, alone. Think about that for a moment. The year is now the 1970s. People are watching color television. Jets cross oceans in hours. Human beings have walked on the moon. A whole generation has grown up without knowing World War II. Meanwhile, one man sleeps under jungle leaves, cleans his rifle, patrols the forest, and prepares for battles that ended decades ago. The world has moved on. He hasn't. By now, Japan believes he is dead. In fact, years earlier, he was officially declared dead. His family mourned him. A memorial service was held. People accepted that he would never return. The only problem? He was still alive. And then the story takes an unbelievable turn. A young adventurer named Norio Suzuki makes a strange promise. He tells his friends he is going to find three things: a wild panda, the abominable snowman, and Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda. Most people laugh. One of those things definitely didn't exist. Maybe two. But Suzuki goes anyway. He enters the jungle, searches for days, and then he finds him, standing in front of him, a living ghost from another era. Thin, weathered, his uniform in tatters. But his rifle? Still clean, still maintained, still ready to fire. After nearly 30 years, Hiroo Onoda is alive. Surely this is the end of the story, right? Wrong. Suzuki tells him everything. The war ended decades ago. Japan surrendered. The world changed. People came home. He shows evidence, photographs, documents, facts. Onoda listens carefully, then shakes his head. No, he will not surrender. He will not leave. He will not lay down his weapon. Not until he receives a direct order from the officer who sent him there. The same officer he hasn't seen since 1944. Now an entire nation faces a bizarre challenge. Not finding a soldier, finding his commander. A man last seen nearly 30 years earlier. Eventually, they locate him. Not on a military base, not in government, not leading troops. He is working quietly in a bookshop, living an ordinary life. His war ended long ago. He never imagined one of his soldiers was still fighting it. March 1974. The former commander travels to Lubang Island for one final mission. The two men stand face to face in the jungle, older now, grayer, separated by nearly 30 years of history. The commander puts on his old uniform, looks at Onoda, and gives one final order. The war is over. You are relieved of duty. Stand down. For the first time in 29 years, Onoda obeys. He lowers his rifle. The rifle he carried through storms, through hunger, through loneliness, through nearly 3 decades of waiting. He is 51 years old. Nearly half his life has disappeared into the jungle, and it all ends with a single sentence. Imagine stepping back into civilization after 29 years. The country you remember no longer exists. New buildings, new music, new technology, new generations. Everything is familiar and completely different. For the world, 3 decades have passed. For Onoda, it feels like yesterday. People still debate his story today. Was he loyal? Was he stubborn? Was he a victim of war? Or a prisoner of his own beliefs? Maybe he was all of those things. But one thing is certain. He survived storms, disease, isolation, and almost 30 years completely cut off from normal life. Not because he was trapped, not because he had nowhere to go, but because he believed. 29 years. Think about that. Children were born, grew up, started families of their own. Entire governments rose and fell. The world transformed. And one man stayed exactly where he was, waiting for an order that had already been given decades earlier. because the strongest prison was never the jungle. It was an idea, and he carried it with him for 29 years.